Hey guys, in this lesson we are going to work on classes. Okay, so this is a very exciting part of programming. So I'm going to make a new directory called classes and go into that and create a file called class.rb. Okay, so let's open this up in Sublime. So a class, think of a class as a variable, but it holds behaviors. Okay. So it's a big concept in programming in Ruby. So to create a class, you say class customer, okay, like this, and now we have a class called customer, and within it we can create different method definitions. So a customer has a first name, it has a last name, it has an email. So these are behaviors, okay, that belong to this class. So we can say to a customer class, what is your first name? We can say what is your last name, and we can also say what is your email, okay, and it can give this information to us. So it's like a big variable, it's like a big holder of information. Okay, so we are now going to use this class to ask it these informations. We create an instance, so it's called an instance. So this left variable, we say customer.new. Okay, so this is a new instance of customer. We can create many of this, but we'll start with just one for now. So we'll have one instance of our customer class called customer. So we can now say customer.class. This will give us the class for that instance, which of course we know is customer. Okay, it could have been called, that variable could have been called anything. All right, so now we can go ahead and inspect all these methods inside it. So I can say, for example, first name, which should print Kingsley. Okay, so there we go. So now we have all these methods here. I'm going to give this a title, creating classes. All right, we are going to look at how to initialize the classes. Okay, so far this class had first name, last name, and email, but what we want to do is make it so we can change those details at will. So this is called initializing. Okay, and it's called initializing because the class has to have a method in it which is called initialize. Okay, so let's refactor this code a little bit. So here I'm going to define that initialize method. Okay, and then within it, when we initialize it, we're going to give it a first name, we're going to give it a last name, we're going to give it an email, right? So now when we call new, that's what it calls initialize for us. That's what happens. All right, so now we can go ahead and run this to see what we see, what errors we get. So it tells us here that we have given a 0 argument and is expecting 3. So that means every time we initialize, we have to give it information. We have to give it a first name that we wanted to use. We have to give it a last name, and then we also have to give it an email. So this makes our class reusable. Okay, so we could feed it information, and then it can use that information to do what it wants. So now the error message is gone. All right, so we can go ahead and just change this, remove all those contents, and then within our initialize, we're going to create a different type of variable. This is called an instance variable. You can see it has an @ in the beginning, and we are assigning the first name, last name, and email to the instance variables. Now, instance variables, once they're defined, you can use them anywhere in the class. So it belongs to the entire instance. So an @ is an instance variable. Without the @ it's just a local variable. So I can say first name here, which will get us the first name. Without the @ it wouldn't work. Okay, so now we have done this. We can save it, and if we run our code, first name will be Kingsley. Okay, so let's run that. So it's fed that in. So it's reading from here. If we change it to John, we expect that nothing changes in the class, and it just pretty much gives us what we want. All right, so this information is the data that we feed into our class, and that's the sort of information that we get from a database, and then we can feed it into an object like this, and it works. So what happens if we try and put customer? So it just gives us a very confusing reference to the stored objects in memory. But if we define a method called toS, to string, okay, we can basically give it some first name and last name. So now if we try and put customer without specifying a method to run, it will run that to string. So that's something else that Ruby gives us. All right, so we have a few repetitions going on here. So we are going to see how to clean this up. So we don't really want to retype first name, last name, email definitions every single time we create a class. So there's something called an attribute reader. So let's see how this works. So I'm going to copy all this here. Okay, comment that out. Okay, just so you know when you're testing this on your own, where to test, and then paste it in here. So we have first name, last name, we have email. This is just repetition, right? So Ruby gives us an attribute reader, which we can define up here. All right, so notice I've deleted other things, all those definitions. So by doing this, Ruby will take every instance that we've created, all right, and create those methods for us. So it gives us access to read those instance variables. So if I do customer.first name, and we'll clear this and run it, it gives us John. It works. So just by adding attribute readers, we have cleaned out the code and made it very easy to read. So if you could say last name, and that will read Ijoma as well. So that's what attribute reader is, and that's how attribute reader works. All right, so you can see up here we have so many different methods here. We just is much slimmer. Okay, so attribute readers is great, and we'll come across. So next we'll have a look at attribute assessor. So attribute reader allows us to read information. Attribute assessor allows us to save into our variables. So we can see how that works. So I'm going to put a divider here, and we'll copy this information. Okay, we can come down here and post that over there. So this is attribute assessor. Copy this, paste it here, select everything, and command / to uncomment the whole line. All right, so let's make some changes here. So you see, I'm going to copy this also, we need this. All right, so we have a customer, okay, whose first name is John. Okay, what we want to be able to do without changing line 91, we want to be able to change the customer's name within our app, because this information here could come from somewhere that we don't have access to. So I would love to ideally be able to say first name equals Kingsley, right? And then if I say customer, right, and I just print customer, I'm hoping that this will then give me the new first name, which is Kingsley, right? But we have undefined method first name equals. So it didn't work, right? But Ruby gives us attribute assessor, which can help us solve that problem. To solve this problem the long way, we could define that missing method like this, okay, and then we can give it a value, right, and we can say at first name equals name and end. So now we've defined that missing method. If we run this, it says Kingsley Ijoma. So it's taken the new name I gave first name, okay, and it worked. And if I change this to Tim, and you can see it also works. But we're trying to prevent writing more codes, right? Because if we wanted to do the same for last name and email, then we're back to square one again. So the good news is we can have attribute assessor, like so. So now this means that we can have first name, last name, and email methods with equal signs automatically done for us. You can see it's given me Tim. So now if I change this to Jane and we run it, it gives me Janie German, and it works. So that's what attribute assessor is. So you can have both attribute reader and attribute assessor, and you could decide what you want to have as a reader and assessor. Alright guys, so we've learned a lot in this class means a lot in Ruby. We are going to be doing a lot more on classes, but this is where we're going to stop for now, and I will see you in the next lesson.